All right, hello. Thank you for joining us for the second lesson in our series of 3. This is a lesson all about our renewable financial resource and about investing. So your students will have just played the Create a State game. They just went bankrupt because they ran out of resources and they didn't invest their money wisely. And so this game is going to take them through those next steps. So for this game, in your kits, you have a worksheet that they will need. You have some market report cards, these bins that are for real estate, stocks, money, or bonds and savings. And then you also have a lot of money, play money, in different denominations that you'll use for this game. So if we look at what this game consists of, we are going to talk all about where money comes from, right? So if you have a lot of money, what can you do with it? So we get the kids brainstorming. If we gave them $1,000, what would you do with it? And most of them are going to come up with things like new gaming systems, new phones, maybe go on a trip, different things like that. So the question that we'll pose to them is, what about invest it? And start thinking about, what is an investment? What does that mean? So if we're talking about investments for this game, we're going to talk about 3 different ways that we can invest. So that is stocks, bonds, and real estate. And so we break down each one of these concepts with the students in case any of them are not familiar with what these look like. So the first is stock, which is that partial ownership in a company. This is McDonald's stock, which is something they can relate to. Just sort of a fun fact that I usually kind of try to make this personal is sharing a personal story about how as a kid, my grandmother used to give me stocks, McDonald's stock. And when I was little, I thought that was terrible because I got a piece of paper for birthdays and things like that. But now that I'm older, I understand the value of what she was doing and appreciate it more. So really kind of diving into what this means and what that looks like for students and what stocks are. Then the next one is bonds. So a little more of a kind of out there concept that not everybody knows about anymore these days. There's not big movies about bonds like there are stocks, but this is that loan from a government, sometimes companies, and that investors are actually buying little tiny bits to loan that company or the government money. And then the third one is real estate. Most students can understand this concept because they may have rented a place at some point with their families. But what they maybe don't understand is that there's different types of real estate. So residential, commercial, industrial, and even sometimes things like vacant land. And so the points to drive home here with these students are what the risks and what the returns are for each of these categories. So when we're talking stocks, we're talking high risk, high return. If we're talking bonds, that's more medium risk, medium return. Real estate and in other forms, but real estate is what we're talking about in this game. That risk can vary. So it's less consistent than stocks or bonds. And then cash, money in the bank, savings, that has low or no risk and very low return. So what we're going to do is in this game, we make it very clear with them, risk level, high, moderate, variable, and low. And then your returns are high, moderate, variable, and no returns whatsoever in their savings. For the actual permanent fund, their kind of average returns over time can be as low as -15, so losing 15% in stocks, and as high as gaining 15%. Bonds sit in the gain always, so gaining 2 to 3%. So very little loss or no loss in that category. And then real estate might lose upwards of 3%, and then you could gain up to 10%. And again, no loss or gain in savings. So how this is going to work is we are going to switch over to our other screen so you can see this here. So how this is going to work is the students are going to get $1,000, and in the workbook that you get with your kits, it tells you exactly how to break out the $1,000, what denominations to give them, that sort of thing. And so you're going to give them their physical money and their tracking sheet. And then they're going to actually invest in each of their buckets. So you'll give them each stocks, real estate, bonds, and savings. And as a group, they're going to physically decide how much money they want to put in each category. Okay. And they have to put all of their money somewhere. Okay. So if they're a little less risk adverse, they might put more money in stocks. They're a little more risk adverse, they might put more money in savings, but it's totally up to them what they want to do. Once each group has physically invested their money, then you're going to draw a market report card. And this card is for the entire class. So there's one market for everybody. It doesn't change by state like it did with the resource generation cards. So you'd have somebody flip this over. Stocks are up 15%. That's a big win for these guys. Bonds are down 2%, and real estate is up 5%. So on their tracking sheet, they will have written down how much they invested in each category. So if this was my group, I would have written down $232 in this line. And then my market report is that it was plus 15%. So I'm going to write plus 15. And then I'm going to have to do that math. Okay, so I'm going to do 15% of what I had invested and see what my value is after. I'm going to do that for each category. For my savings, I'm just going to write how much was in here, and then it's going to be the same number here because nothing happened to your savings. Okay. So what that looks like, and we can share our screen again so you can see that. What that looks like here is if I had invested $400, my market report was up 3%. I'm going to do that math and have a new total. Okay. And then your students need to either pay you or you are going to pay them these dollars amounts. So how much they either lost or gained. So in this case, I would pay them the $12 and the $60, but because this one was a loss, they actually have to pay me $10, and they can figure out what the math is from there. And then you have a whole bunch of extra money that you can use as your bank. We round up or down to the closest dollar amount. We don't have cents and change in the kit. So if the math doesn't work out to perfect dollar amounts, then just round. They will obviously try to push you to round up, but you feel free to round down if it's too close to a single dollar. And then we typically have them play 5 rounds if you have time in class. That 5-year cycle is what the permanent fund operates off of. And so it kind of mimics that the best. And then once they're done playing through the 5 years, whoever has ultimately made the most money, so they started with $1,000, whoever has the most money at the end wins. And then we show them this second video. And so this second video is linked on our website and available on YouTube and Vimeo as an opportunity to take what they learned and played in the game and apply that diversification to how the actual permanent fund does it in real life. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for our 3rd video in the series.